Hello and welcome. This is Business Breakthroughs Podcast. My name is Diane Fulmer, your host. I'm the founder of DE Fulmer LLC, a marketing agency offering book editing, copywriting, and consultation services so busy business owners can bring their authentic stories to their audience to connect, build relationships, and increase their sales. In the description box or show notes, you'll find some links to connect with me. If you want to sponsor an episode, please reach out. Thank you for your support. This is an interview style podcast where we talk to business owners about their origin stories and lessons learned. You'll get to realize you're not alone, and we've all been there at some point. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Comment below and let us know your thoughts on this episode. With that out of the way, let's get started. On today's episode, we have Devin Tracy. Devin Tracy is Chief Marketing Officer of Windfall Elite, a marketing agency that helps companies get found on Google and has helped over 1,100, actually 1,111 currently, clients in the past 6 years. Hi, and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm actually really excited about this because I did a lot of content last year, but this is the first podcast that I've been on this year. I've been just head down grinding. So I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, we're excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. Can you tell me some more about yourself and what led you to start a business?
I think what led me to start a business is foundationally, like the honest answer is probably it's a personality typing. I'm probably just hardwired to be an entrepreneur because thinking back, my entire life was very entrepreneurial in nature. My first plan in high school was that I was going to go as far as I could with martial arts. And I was going to get a degree in kinesiology so that I could have a certification saying that I know how to get in shape. And then after I went as far as I could in martial arts, whether that was a couple amateur fights locally or whether that was UFC champion, I was going to go as far as I could. Then I was going to turn around and open a gym. And so my plan always was to be a business owner. That plan changed when I got injured at 18 and that ended my martial arts career and was to the degree of like, oh, it's not that I can turn around and train. I can't coach because doing anything is too painful. So I've kind of always had an entrepreneurial leaning. For a season of my life, I actually thought that I've never been involved in a multi-level marketing company like Amway or anything like that.
Mhm.
But when I was 18, I met somebody who was actually relatively successful in Amway. And so
Mhm.
they tried to show me Amway. They tried to, I know I didn't join, but seeing like their approach to life and business kind of inspired me to a degree of I could probably do that. And for a while, I thought that that was the catalyst that inspired my entrepreneurship. But
Mhm.
looking back, I realized, no, I was already entrepreneurial. I just had a different direction I was thinking it was going to go. So I think that it's just hardwired in. I think that it's just in my DNA. And I think any other explanation that I give is probably anecdotal. And I don't know if it's true or not.
So you've always been interested in kind of going your own way, carving your own path.
Yes. And to the degree, like, it's been really, really comforting in the last couple of years when I hit a wall and I'm struggling and I'm stressed out of my mind and I don't want anything that I'm doing today to remind myself that's not true. Actually, I do want this. I picked this. And I
Mhm.
continue picking it every time I go to the office rather than applying for a job. This was my choice. As soon as I enter that frame and I remind myself of that, I then say, and I still choose this. And I'm gonna go do that because I would rather I'd rather make less money doing more work on my own. For those that don't know, actually have over 9,000 hours of teaching experience. I was a teacher for a long time before I went full time into business, and I loved teaching. And so the balance is always, would I go back to teaching? And the answer is probably not. I don't see the reality where I do that. Maybe on the trajectory of either teaching a course at a college level or maybe on the trajectory of like a retirement plan. But for the most part, every time I remind myself that I could actually make a decent living doing something else, I'm always like, no, we're going to grind this out.
Yeah, you make a really good point about when you make a commitment to something, that commitment isn't just made once, it's made every single day. And it's more about the discipline and not the motivation. It's reminding yourself that you get to do this every day. because you chose it. And I think that was a really great point that you made. So we talked about what inspired you to get started in business and make that leap because you've sort of already been doing that for most of your life. In that process, what have you learned and who helped along the way or who inspired you?
That's a big question. So who inspired me? I think that I actually lean on a lot of different people. In more recent years, my aunt's been a bigger inspiration than she was initially. My aunt owns a paintball field and is very successful
Mm.
at the paintball field. And that's the only like business owner, entrepreneur in my family. So as I've gotten more into this being my full-time endeavor, because I had a side business while I was teaching, I've leaned on her wisdom more and more. And that's been so she's been a consistent inspiration and support. And I think outside of that, like there's just I could probably list a dozen different mentors and coaches that I've either paid for or partnered with over the years that have been valuable to me. I think that I probably, even when I very first started, had this mindset of if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to get around people who were ideally notably more successful than me, ideally in the same exact industry. So I was always willing to pay for that if that's what it took. But I actually would be a strong advocate, by the way, that like paying for a mentor is probably a wise investment. Now, I say probably because there's a lot of charlatans out there, so you got to make sure that
Yeah.
they're a person worth paying attention to, and that's kind of hard to discern sometimes because good marketers might not be good people, but if they're good
Yeah.
marketers, it's hard to tell. But a lot of time, I've probably spent I spent over $100,000 on mentorship, and I think over half of it was a good investment, and the other half was what it took to find the good ones.
That's a great point too, with what it takes to find the good ones and then the good ones.
Well, when you look at it
On
in
that
that
side.
frame and you think of it as like, this is just me paying for my own education,
Yes.
um, my actual college degree cost more than I've spent on mentorship. And so from that perspective, it's like, okay, I'm paying about what college costs. And
Mhm.
when I paid for something that ended up not being worth having paid for, well, that's a lesson learned. And
Yep.
that perspective kind of detaches you from it on an emotional level. And I've even had things happen in my life where I'm just like, well, I could be mad at them, or I could be mad at myself, or I could just
Mhm.
recognize this as a lesson and not make the same mistake again and move on. And that's the frame that tends to be healthiest. Like,
Yes.
all right, I've learned something. And
Yeah.
honestly, I can be grateful that I learned something. It wasn't what I wanted to learn,
Yeah.
but I learned something.
That's so true. Yeah, I mean, you either win or you learn, I've heard. So,
Yes, I like that a lot. In the early days in my business, I repeated that mantra constantly. I win or I learn, I don't lose. I think more recently, I've actually slightly shifted it. Same basic principle, but what I find myself saying a lot now is either my business is growing or I am. Um,
okay.
so it's like something's growing, so everything's good. And all the problems and all the hardships, and we'll probably talk about some today, I'm assuming, but everything that goes wrong is like, no, this isn't something going wrong. This is a lesson. I'm growing so that my business can grow in the next season. Everything's positive. You just don't always know how it's positive.
Mm. Yeah, that's incredible. So, I think it's a good time for a few brief breakthroughs. What's a mistake that people make?
Hmm. So I think you can kind of categorize this at what stage of business they're in. If you are, let's say, like you're starting out, and let's say let's contextualize this a little bit so I can really speak to you. Let's say that
Mhm.
you're just starting out. Let's say that you are trying to do something that is fundamentally you can do it behind a computer. So you're doing a virtual service of some form, or um, maybe you're launching an e-commerce store or something like that. You're doing something virtually, and a lot of times that's the right path to start. By the way, for most people, most people don't have the financial backing to start a brick and mortar, and you can argue which one's better long term, but I think short term, doing having a virtual service based business like
Mhm.
copyright, like
Yep.
SEO services. I think that's a brilliant way to start because your overhead is zero. And that
Mhm.
makes it a very healthy business to start when you're strapped for cash. So let's talk to that because that's what I can talk to. The biggest mistakes that I see in that like zero to launch or 0 to 6 figure range of like we're trying to get going, the biggest ones are always the same things. There's shiny object syndrome. So just not doing the same thing long enough. Uh,
Mhm.
the reality is the grass is not greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it, right?
Yeah.
So in my own life, like I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18 years old. And for the first several years, every 6 months, I was doing something different. And
Mhm.
that cycle will never get you to a stable business. And the problem is everything looks easier than what you're currently doing because
Mhm.
you don't understand it well enough to know what's wrong with it. And then when you get into something new and we get rewarded in the wrong way for doing the wrong thing because as soon as you start something new, you're probably going to find that in the first month, you're going to make a couple sales. Like it's really hard not to when you start something new and you're excited about it, passionate, and you're reaching out to everybody you know, you're going to get a little bit of traction. And that little bit of traction is going to feel easier than the thing you were just doing. And so you're going to get
Mhm.
rewarded for the wrong thing. And then you're going to jump ship. And then
Mhm.
that gets hard. You're going to remember, and I mean this psychologically, not necessarily memory wise, but you're going to remember the
Mhm.
dopamine hit of how easy it is when you jump ship. And so we reinforce these bad behaviors. And I see this all the time, and I do it myself a lot. And so when I was more in the realm of doing like business coaching and consulting, I had an entire framework that I built around figuring out what you should be doing. That when you want to jump ship, hopefully you will remember, I need to run it through this framework and see if it's worth the shift. And then you'll find
Mm.
because you can build any business to a seven-figure business
Mhm.
if it's the thing you stick at for 5 years. And if you're not willing to stick at it for 5 years, well, and it's 5 years is somewhat arbitrary, but the point is like stick it out.
Mhm.
You can build any business to a seven-figure business. You can build lawn care maintenance to 7 figures. So like you can build any
I have
business.
a cousin who did that. He's been in business since he was 14. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like, okay, can you really become a multi-billionaire selling something like Chinese food? I don't know. Ask Panda Express. Yes.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah.
stick at something for long, but here's the trick. Panda Express has been in business for 40 years,
Yeah.
doing one thing for 40 years. So that's a big one. Shiny object syndrome is a huge mistake that I see constantly. I think most of the problems getting from 0 to 6 figures are psychological. They're in your own head. I think it's a lack of discipline. It's a lack of focus. I think it's weird how often people have this pattern of, and by people, I'm talking about myself. It's weird how often people have this pattern of finding something that works for like client acquisition and then not continuing to do it. And it was like, well, if that works, why would you ever stop? You shouldn't stop until it stops working, right? But so
Mhm.
often it's like, oh, I did that thing and it worked really well. So why haven't you done it again? I don't know. You can do more events if events works for you. Do more networking if that got you business. Keep doing
Yeah.
it until it stops working. And so that's a big one. It's just lack of consistency on marketing
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't recognize that no matter what business you're in the business of marketing and sales. Every business can be broken down to in the first 6 figures. Like there are three things you are doing. You are doing marketing, you're doing sales, and you're doing fulfillment. To do the 7 figures, you also need to do management of a team. But like marketing, sales, fulfillment.
Mhm.
Uh, no matter what you do, you need to be good enough at those three things to get a throughput. So, do you need to be the world's best salesman? No. But if your sales close is 0%, then you don't have a business. So,
Yeah.
you need to sell enough. Do you need to be the world's best marketer? No. But if exactly 0 people know you're in business, then you're not.
Yeah.
And do you need to you don't even need to be amazing at what you do for fulfillment, especially initially. You won't be because you don't know what you're doing yet. But if you cannot fulfill, you won't have a business because everyone's going to tell everyone how you can't fulfill. So each of those things in the beginning, you don't need to be amazing at them, but you need to be proficient at them. And I think a lot of times business owners never learn marketing. And then when you ask them, well, how do you get most of your customers? They're like, well, I think word of mouth is probably it. And what that tells you is one of two things. Either one, they don't actually know how they're getting clients at all because word of mouth is usually it, or like when you actually, or
Mhm.
B, they're right. It's only word of mouth, and that's why they're struggling because word of mouth doesn't scale very well. In most cases, especially with small businesses, they'll tell you word of mouth, and you look into it, you're like, actually, no, you get your clients by networking. You just
Mhm.
don't recognize that as a client acquisition channel. Or actually, no, you get your clients from your social media posting, but you
Mhm.
don't think about that as marketing. So you don't recognize it as a way that you're getting client. There's usually something else that they're not recognizing, Or actually, your website ranks on Google. So you actually have SEO going for you. It's rare that word of mouth is the answer, but it's often that it's the answer because someone hasn't about marketing.
Ah.
Those are a lot of the big ones that I see in that early, like 0 to 6 figures. Most of it's mindset. And then getting from 6 to 7 figures, it's all about team management.
Mhm.
Uh, that's another one. And I can't speak past what I just said. I'm not at 7 figures. Just so I can't speak past what I just said. But it seems to me that there are levels in business that once you get there, your job as the owner fundamentally changes. And
Mm.
so it's good to recognize those patterns and see them, to ask yourself, how big do I actually want to grow? Because maybe
Mhm.
I think that I want to have $100 million company, but then I realize what the owner of a $100 million company does. I think, okay, well, maybe the company can still grow there, but maybe it grows there without me as the CEO. Maybe it grows there,
Mm.
and as the founder, I actually just put myself into the job that I like and I hire CEOs because you can do
Mhm.
that. But maybe you recognize that along the way, okay, well, when I'm just trying to get 6 figures, I can be everything. I don't need a team. But
Mhm.
in order to get to 7 figures, I actually need a team probably. In most business, you'll need a team to get to 7 figures. And you're like, okay, so how big of a team do I need? Oh, I need 10 people. I need to manage 10 people. Well,
Mhm.
I don't want to manage 10 people. Oh, and if I'm managing 10 people, then even though we're getting to 7 figures, my salary is the same. That's a lot of
Mhm.
work that I don't like for the same salary. Maybe I'm happy with a 6-figure company. And I think those are just good things to think about, that your role does fundamentally change as you level up.
Wow. That was a whole mini course right there. Thank you so much, Devin.
Yeah, I realized, and I realized at some point, I was like, I don't even know what the original question was.
Oh, it
And I
was
was
just
like,
what's
oh,
a mistake that people make, but I was gonna let you keep going because that's just I mean, I learned so much every time I talk to you, or I'll probably bring up your book at some point, but yeah, you just have a way of I don't know if it's from being a teacher, of just sort of like and you were a math teacher, so you organize the information in a way that is very helpful and educational, and I don't know. It's like a whole class. It's awesome.
thank you. Yeah, it might be from being a teacher, although I think fundamentally, I would, the same way that I'm an entrepreneur by design, I think I'm a teacher by design, not by
Mhm.
experience. 'Cause that was even when I started venturing into the entrepreneurial world, the very first thoughts I had were around, how can I help people be better people? And the answers to
Mhm.
that I came to tended to consistently being very education based.
Yeah.
And I think that I've really struggled in my business to get away from coaching and consulting, because I just have such a deep passion for it. Uh,
Yeah.
but to that, by the way, I'm very hard set right now. I will not be advertising coaching consulting services until my agency hits 7 figures. Not doing it.
Okay.
That is a hard rule that I set for myself. And effectively, um, when you're trying to do both, you can't really scale either. If
Mm. Yeah.
that's the struggle that I had. And then as picking which one to focus in on, my position was very much, I'm not willing to just be a coach. I'm not willing to
Mm.
not be in the trenches and not be doing what I'm talking about. It feels unethical to me. So I
Yeah.
decided for the short term, I will build the 7 figures, and then I can build a team and remove myself enough that I can have time for coaching as well. And at that
Mhm.
point, rather than only being able to say, "Hey, let's get you from 0 to launch, let's get you to 5 or $10,000 a month in revenue," I'll be able to say, "I have experience building a 7-figure company. I can help you build a 7-figure company." And I think
Mhm.
that's a better sales pitch for a coach anyway. So that's kind of the path that but I had to set a hard rule and, like, write
Yeah.
it out. I'm not allowing
Mhm.
myself to promote coaching or consulting until my agency is a 7-figure run rate. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways to define it. Like, what's a 7-figure company? Well, technically, it's a company that could sell for 7 figures. My definition that I'm using is 7 figures in annual revenue.
Okay.
So the profit doesn't need to be 7 figures in my mind, but the annual revenue needs to be 7 figures.
That makes sense. Well, you were kind of talking about a recent lesson that you learned about how you can't really build 2 types of businesses at the same time. Are there any other recent lessons that you've learned?
Yeah. So that one I really learned time weight. timeline wise, I figured that out in November.
Hmm.
And so in January of this year, I zoomed in on SEO. So that's
Hmm.
all we're going to be doing. And I did that very much because of everything I was doing that was the most scalable.
Hmm.
So we're gonna focus on that. That's a big one that's kind of shaped this year for me. And it's also
Hmm.
why I haven't been doing like content and stuff because I'm laser focused on services. But another one, this is both a win and a lesson. I mentioned earlier, either the business grows or I do. Right?
Hmm.
In May, my business doubled, more than doubled. This is more than doubled, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Huge win. Also, we were not at all ready for that. Growth and success, if not handled well, can and will kill a business. If you grow
Yeah.
too quickly, especially if you grow quick enough that you can saturate your market and then give a lot of people a bad impression of you. that can-
Mm. Yeah.
And so over the last month, 6 weeks, it's 6 weeks at this point, I haven't been marketing at all. I've been entirely focusing on trying to fix my internal systems. I've been entirely focusing on trying to correct fulfillment mistakes that me and my team were making. And that being said, as a business owner, if your team makes a mistake, you made the mistake. It's your fault.
Yes.
So, so fixing the mistakes that I've been making, fixing staffing issues, and frankly, this month, June at time of recording, we will probably be in the negative this month to kind of fix some of the hiccups that we found last month.
Hmm.
We like negative in the like profit side. Our revenue's higher, but we're
Hmm.
probably gonna end up in the negative this month, and then it should smooth out next month. And so that's a very strong example of the either the business grows or you do. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, the ideal is that the business grows every single month. However, this would be food for thought for anybody listening. If you want the business to double every single month, it probably can't. And in
Yeah.
the early days, it probably can because doubling from 1 to 2 isn't that big of a deal.
Mhm.
And then doubling from 2 to 4 isn't even that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it probably can't keep doubling very many times because you probably don't have the systems necessary to take care of your clients or your customers, depending if you're doing products and services. But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hardest thing you can do in your business is slow down. And
Mm.
I think that's a lesson that I'm learning right now, like in real time, is just the recognition of how this last 6 weeks has actually been really rough. Like the increase
Yeah.
in clients has been stressful. The
Yeah.
problems that were unveiled in my company has been stressful and shocking and not at all what I expected. And that being said, right now, and we luckily timed this interview perfect timing because I couldn't have told you this a week ago.
Okay.
But right now, I am way more confident in where my business is at moving forward than I probably ever have been. And I
Hmm.
suspect that the problems that I've been forced to fix in the last 6 weeks are, I think the business today
Hmm.
can get to 7 figures. And I think that the business that I had a month ago could not. And I probably knew that and was just, we're going to fix the problems when we get to them. Well, we got to them.
Yeah.
And I think that the systems are in place in such a way that we can, within the next week, they'll be in place in such a way that we can probably scale to 7 figures without having to change anything else internally.
Hmm.
And I'll let you know if I'm right or wrong on that. But that's the big lesson there is sometimes your business can't grow, and that's actually a good thing. But if the
Hmm.
business is not growing, it better be because you as the owner are.
Yeah. That's a great point. Let's see here. So, of course, the next question was recent win, and then you told me recent win already. You are ahead of me, Devin. So, tell me about a goal that you have this year.
This year, for the end of the year, my revenue target for the business is to hit 30,000 a month in revenue by the end of the year. So
Mhm.
that's one just financial goal that we have. A goal that I care more about is client count. So getting here won't get me to 30,000 a month. This has to happen first, but it's more important. I want to have 20 active clients who are on monthly retainers. And the reason for that goal is because of the world of venture capital. So this is a good lesson that it took me way too long to learn. I wish somebody would have told me this so much sooner because it makes so much sense. If you have a large agency or service-based business
Mhm.
that you are trying to sell and you have a single client that is responsible for more than 5% of your revenue, you can't sell your company.
Mm. Okay.
So effectively, it's a metric of risk. So how much risk does the company have? Is if you have a single client responsible for more than 5% of your revenue, depending on the company, that could mean that you have a single client that's responsible for 25% of your profits.
Mm.
Because
Okay.
revenue and profit are so dramatically different. And so that's a very risky company. So
Yes.
I learned this because I was speaking with Nathan Hirsch, and he shared this metric with me. Nathan Hirsch has sold a company to the Hoth, large company that buys companies.
Hmm.
And he told me how that was a metric that the Hoth cared about. And then I talked to AJ Rivera, who sold a couple of companies, and he just gave me the advice of try to make sure that none of your clients are worth more than 5%. And I was like, where'd that
Yeah.
come from? The metric on the health of a company. I'm like, but where do you learn? He's, I learned that when I was selling my company. He was like, okay, so the thing that venture capital cares about. And
Yeah.
when I think about it, it makes sense. Because even on a lower level, like if I have 10 clients and each client is paying me $1,000 a month,
Yeah.
and for fulfillment, I'm spending $3,000 or $4,000 a month.
Hmm.
So I have $7,000 a month profit, right? But I have to factor in all the hard costs of my business, like my space, internet, things like that, right? So okay, probably $5,000 a month profit minimum. Like we're probably pretty healthy here. And then one client quits, client cancels, and suddenly you drop from 5,000 to 4,000. You're like, whoa, I just lost 20% of my profit. Like that can hurt. And
Yeah.
so just knowing that it's the venture capital goal, I want 20 active clients because that's the minimum number you need so that
Mhm.
they're all worth 5% or less. That they're all paying the same price, then they're all worth 5%. So that's a really big short-term goal that I have of just wanting to get to 20 clients.
And then managing all of the balancing in between of like growing too fast or not fast enough and
Mhm.
just trying to, manage without falling off the ladder.
Right. And
Okay.
there's a there's a fun metric. It's been shown that most people can only keep track of somewhere between 6 to 9 things at a time. So most organizations, the military is a great example, like aim low and they say 6. Let's stay on the safe side. People can only keep track of 6 things at a time. So a smart organization will put a team lead in charge of no more than 6 team members. But if they're in charge of 6 team members, that's their entire job is being the team lead.
Mhm.
If you have a client success personnel, if they are really hands-on, if they're supposed to follow up with the clients, they're supposed to pay attention and reach out on a weekly basis, they should
Mhm.
not be given more than 6. They'll slip through the cracks no matter what systems you have. If
Yeah.
they're just meant to respond to open invoices or open emails and things like that, then they can handle a lot more. But it depends
Mhm.
on the day. So recognizing that, you can start saying, okay, if I want a large company, how large of a team do I need based on how many touch points do I want to be able to give my clients? And so let's say 6 clients per client manager because because my services are high touch. So 6
Yes.
clients per client manager. Okay. And I need 1 team lead for 6 client managers. So for 36 clients, I need 7 employees.
Mhm.
You can do the math and you can figure out how well does this scale and how big can it get before it becomes a like structural nightmare. That's kind of part of the problems that we ran into. So I have 8 clients. It's hard to keep track of 8 clients, no matter the systems you have in place, if one person is responsible for keeping track of them. Um,
Yep.
there's a lot of ways you can kind of gamify it. You can compartmentalize. If you give somebody one task, and that one task is for SEO, that your one job is securing backlinks. That's what you do. It's a hard job, by the way. Backlinks are
Mhm.
so your one job is backlinks. And on your workflow, you get projects one at a time, and the projects tells you the niche and the link that you want to link back to.
Mhm.
And you are going to work with this until you get the backlinks that we're looking for. 1, 2, 5, however many backlinks we want.
Mhm.
Then you can move on to the next one. Now, that person doesn't have to know that they're working with 40 clients
Yeah.
because their job is one task. So there's ways you can gamify it, and those are the solutions that you find at scale. When we're not doing and that's so we I had that's why I had to figure out staffing issues. Doing everything myself wasn't very scalable.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Like, it's not necessarily just the sales and the marketing and the acquiring clients and revenue and all of that. It's also all of the fulfillment and making sure that you have the staff available because there's only one of you.
Right. One of the things that I've leaned into, this is other lessons learned recently that I think is really valuable, and it's part of why I'm so confident about where the business is going. So you introduced me as the chief marketing officer. I'm
Yes.
I am the co-founder of the company, and I'm the chief marketing officer.
Yep.
Um, my other co-founder is effectively a silent partner.
Okay.
Um, and so when we launched, he helped financially. And
Hmm.
in theory, if the business ever has financial constraints, he helps financially, which he had to at the beginning of the year when we changed directions. And that's kind of the nature of our relationship, at least on the short term. One day
Hmm.
he might take on a role of like chief financial officer. So how does a company with a small team justify someone having the title of the chief marketing officer? Well, you can say chief marketing officer, or you could say marketing director. And it's true if that's all you do. If all you focus on is the marketing, maybe the sales, then you're the marketing director. You're the CMO if that's the structure of the organization. And for a while, that was not true. That was the title that I gave myself, but I was also doing most of the fulfillment. And in my mind, it still made sense for the title because the fulfillment is marketing services.
Right.
So I'm still doing marketing just for my clients. And I recognized that that actually means I couldn't actually really have more than 5 clients because my business is one of my clients.
Yes.
Um,
That
and
is
it's
really true of smaller businesses. Yes.
and then suddenly I had 8 clients. And so we had a team of freelancers that we used for fulfillment, and I would manage them. And then, okay, so I'm managing like 6 people over here, and I am managing 5 clients, and I'm trying and well, so this so we brought on an individual who will probably be something to the effect of a operating officer. That's not his
Mhm.
title yet. He's gonna earn that, but that's probably gonna be the role he moves towards. And so he's gonna be handling a lot of fulfillment, and he's gonna be interacting with the freelancers that we outsource to. And I will not be doing fulfillment anymore. I will actually be the chief marketing officer. All I am doing is the marketing and sales for my company. And so that move, and it's so funny too. I think this might be true. I don't know yet. I think it might be true that the solution to 99% of problems in a business is just get the right person on your team.
Mm.
I think
Yes.
that solves so many problems.
It
Get that
does.
person on
Yeah.
the bus.
Yeah.
And I think what is the right person changes at different stages too. When your business isn't even pulling in $1 million a year yet, which by the way is a very small business as far as you're not going to be able to hire amazing talent because truly amazing talent, the person who would want to be a COO of a company would also demand $5 million a year salary and
Yes.
they'd be worth it.
Mhm.
But you can bring on somebody who is amazing for now, and then maybe they grow with you and maybe they don't. And so the job changes, but you can level up your team as you level up. And so often the easiest solution is simply, yeah, maybe the only solution is just get the right person on the bus.
Yep.
There's somebody out there who does this way better than you and they're excited to work with you. Just find them.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. All of that. Getting the right people. That is a wonderful point. So, my next question, you told me you're not promoting anything right now, but it sounds like you have a wonderful business that does SEO that you're focusing on. So, do you want to say anything about that in case anyone listening needs SEO services?
Sure. So I don't go on podcasts to promote. I go on podcasts hopefully to just give value. I have a very
Which we
long
very much appreciate. Thank you so much.
I have a long-term philosophy on these types of things. It's
Yeah.
similar where I approach networking. I think it's more beneficial for everybody on a long enough time horizon if your goal is to simply add value.
Yeah.
So I try to make that my value, or I try to make that my goal. That being said, I do have a pretty incredible SEO company. If I do say
Okay.
so myself, we are quite fantastic. If you are a local small business owner, probably the best way that you can win on Google right now is the Google Local Map Pack. So if you do a Google search for something like, I don't know, law firm near me, what you're going to
Mhm.
see is the very first thing that shows up is an ad. It says sponsored on it, it's an ad. You're going to get somewhere between sometimes zero, but probably somewhere between 1 to 5 sponsored links. And what the data is showing us in 2024 is people don't click on ads nearly as much as they used to. The vast majority of people are going to scroll past that. So no matter how many ads are there, they collectively get between 3 to 10% of the traffic. So 3 to 10%
Mhm.
of people click on the ads. The thing that shows up right underneath that is what's known as the Google Local Map Pack. That's a section that shows like Google's top 3 recommendations in the area next to a map showing where you can find the city. And
Mhm.
this section is getting about, depending on the search, somewhere between 45 to 52% of the traffic on.
Mhm.
And fun fact too, the top 3 spots all get equal traffic here, which is different than traditional SEO. Traditional SEO, the top result gets 3 times more result clicks than the second result, which gets 3 times more clicks than the third result. That's not
Mhm.
true on the map pack. On the map pack, they all get equal results. And I think that's because you see them all simultaneously. You don't have to scroll to
Mhm.
see the next one. I think that's my theory. Um,
Yeah.
but this is where the majority of people are going right now for anything
Yeah.
that's local. So if you're a local business owner, the best way to win is to rank in the top 3 on your local map pack. And that's really cool because when we're talking about SEO, traditional SEO is a lot harder.
Mhm.
And because of that, as a service, it's a lot more expensive, but it still takes just as long as ranking in the map pack does. And it actually right now is getting less results because ranking number one in Google organically is going to give you maybe 15% of the clicks, but
Mhm.
so is ranking in the map pack. And
Yeah.
so it's an easier win. And so that would be my my recommendation. Any local business owner is while we can do on-site SEO and off-site SEO, and we can get you ranked in Google. Probably the smartest, fastest move for you is to actually get your Google business profile, Google My Business optimized
Mhm.
and get that to rank. It'll probably be a bigger, faster win, and it is definitely cheaper. That would be the service that I would recommend to anyone who's listening that has a local presence is
Okay.
get ranked on the map pack.
See, and that answer also gave tons of value because now it's like they know something that they could do if they're gonna DIY, but they
Yeah,
can also talk to you. So
yeah.
I think that's great. And then I just am a giant fan of your book. I know that you're not promoting your coaching right now, so you can get this book on Amazon or contact Devin. I'll have his contact details. It basically breaks down starting your business for beginners into math. Like, there's a lot of mindset. And the thing that really struck me about this is that, yes, there is a mindset in starting your business, but then there's also math. And math is as comforting as meditation, I think, because it's like you can solve problems literally by solving problems.
Probably my first
Yeah.
mentor in entrepreneurship, his name is Jimmy Sliegel. Jimmy
Mhm.
Sliegel, I think I'd have to check. I don't know if it's, but I think he has the largest Amazon store. Uh,
Mhm.
so um, Jimmy Sliegel used to tell me that this would be his answer to the question. You got, well, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that it is a math problem. The good
Mhm.
news is that it's just a math problem. And success in business is just a math problem. And then
Yep.
doing the inputs, figuring out what X is, and then doing it. Uh,
Yes.
by the way, I just checked that book. You can get it on Amazon, and then you'll pay like $20 or whatever it is on Amazon. I still have it linked in my bio on Facebook for the free book, where
Okay.
if if you go through my funnel, you can get the book for free, pay shipping and handling, and then I will personally sign it. So that link's still up.
Okay. I can include that link in the show notes and description as well. Are there any other lessons, thoughts?
Oh,
No, it's okay. We've covered a lot today. We've covered a lot of lessons about your journey, about what you're doing now. And it's been a great conversation, Devin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So this has been Business Breakthroughs with Diane Fulmer and guest Devin Tracy. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, save, share, and subscribe. See you next time.
Bye.